Or should I say, g'day? G'day, mate.
Paul's got the down under spell still going on. Good day, eh? How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm not like Eric Cozy. I'm not a whinging pawn.
Right. so were y'all ever able to like bring home a kangaroo or anything?
Well, yeah, I'd already got my suitcase already full with this bloody Shaun the Sheep, so I didn't have any room for
Yeah,
the kangaroo.
I think you should have brought home a kangaroo. Just for the symbolism of the kangaroo court, right? And then
Yes.
we we can start calling Manitowoc County Supreme Court like a kangaroo conservationist, like
Oh, definitely.
a petting zoo where they pet dollar bills.
Well, certainly, Charlie Berens loves any to include any articles about. I've noticed goats and any kind of escaped kangaroo.
Right.
he loves his escaped animals, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, do you like my new edition, the flag?
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah. That's international support. That's my way of showing
Your
international support
your
for the.
street cred has made it all the way to the U.S.
Yeah. So I suppose I should really introduce what I said to you earlier about what I really wanted to ask you about and sort of expand upon and discuss, because you're somebody with a great deal of knowledge on this, and it's a question that I think I think it cuts right to the whole core of why Making a Murderer ever came out. What would have happened if Teresa hadn't have disappeared on Halloween and Steve's civil suit had been allowed to continue?
Right, that's a very good question.
Thank you.
Kind we probably need to elaborate on the Hallback family too. I mean, it'd be interesting because I want to get into the structure of the Hallback family. Their daily routines and you know you got Mike Hallback with a great career, and you got Tim Hallback with a great career. Was Teresa kind of the black sheep of the family? It's a good question to ask.
Well,
And
since I found out about obviously the sort of photography that she was doing, it's one of the things that's mentioned right at the start of the Wrecking Crew book, was the fact that because of the nature of the work that she was doing, that was considered. You've suddenly gone, if you were looking for private insurance, you've suddenly gone from very low risk to a very high risk.
exactly, and again, that's not said with any disrespect to
No,
Teresa Hallback.
no.
It's I mean, if you go in that profession, there's risk with everything. I mean,
Well, I mean,
that's just
I think the riskiest job here in the UK, and the one that you would struggle to get insurance for, would be, for example, if you were a tree surgeon.
right, right.
But when it comes to some of the people that she was dealing with, she was getting invited in by certain people to come and have a drink and let's discuss this further. People had taken a shine to her and thought, let's have a bit of fun with the photographer. And no, I think she tried to. From all accounts, she tried to keep it as professional as possible. But
Right, and then
you're attracting some people with a certain seedy background, aren't you?
right, and then we know she was gonna leave Thomas Pierce, to expand on her stuff. So like, if she never died and she was alive today, and Stephen and Brendan were never framed, you know, we got to go back to the civil suit. I I think it would have been pretty interesting. I know Steven would have got a substantial amount of money. I don't necessarily say, I wouldn't say all $36 million. What was it? Mike Griesbach, you said 3 to 5 million.
3 to 5 million.
I would say up in the range to 5 to 8 million in a case of his.
Yeah.
2004 when he filed for that $36 million. He petitioned legislation for 1.2 million, and that was when Mark Gundren come at him like, "Hey, we'll give you 460,000," and it was an insult. I mean, you give him $25,000, but he just wanted $1.2 million, and he wanted the Wisconsin Innocent Project to have the majority of that money to begin with. Like so they could continue on with their good deeds
Yeah.
for helping people get out. But that's actually where Lautenschlager, Attorney General Lautenschlager, she steps in and started backlogging the crime lab. Now, like I was telling you earlier, the crime lab, when it backlogs, it wasn't affecting, but the 900 people that have filed letters with Mark Gundrum and started writing legislation to say, hey, you need to review our case. That's why Stephen Avery was the poster child. So, if it had gone forward, I, at some point, if they didn't frame him when they framed him, I still think he probably would have got framed and shut up. But because if you have these other 900 people, filing all these cases and wanting their case reviewed, and there was some type of bipartisan law and legislation passed to get these cases reviewed, you got a $1 billion problem. If all 900 of those people were to sue for $1.2 billion like Stephen Avery, you still have a $1 billion problem, and that's like so his civil suit, would have when if Wisconsin wasn't the proverbial epitome of corruption, I think he would have won. And if you let him win, everything would have snowballed. So,
yeah. I mean, certainly, if we go back a step further back, as I was saying to you, we hear at the very end of episode 1 of series 1, we hear, I think it's Steve Glynn says that, we warned Stephen Avery that he could expect to hear people say things about him that he'd never heard before. The one thing we never warned him was that you could end up being charged with murder. Was that a little bit naive of them to think that, Stephen Avery, he did 18 years. He's gotten out. He was clearly framed the first time. Staying in that community, still staying in the county of Manitowoc. We hear that he didn't want to feel as if he was being run out of town. But should somebody not have said to him, Steve, if you're going to try and take 36 million or whatever amount out of this county, do you not think it would be a good idea to maybe relocate somewhere else just until this civil suit is sorted out? I know it's benefit of hindsight, but I mean, we wouldn't all be here, but and that would be a shame that we hadn't met everybody. But I can't help thinking that was a wee bit naive of them.
Well, what surprises me is the same person that said that, Stephen Glenn, was invited after Lautenschlager strips the Avery Task Force from Mark Gundrum. They changed it to the Criminal Justice Study Commission, and she invited Stephen Glenn to sit as a participant, as one of the chair, on that board. And you got like 20 people on this thing, and it's like if you felt there's so much danger. And Peg Lautenschlager, first of all, if she's trying to block Gregory Allen from getting out there, like the bad rep, because Governor Doyle and Mark Gundrum were saying, yes, Stephen got railroaded. Peg Lautenschlager was the only one calling Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office innocent. But okay, if you're Stephen Glenn, he started sitting with Peg Lautenschlager in August 31st. This is 2 months before Teresa Hallback is even goes missing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So why, if you're suing that and the main person to tackle is Peg Lautenschlager, why the hell are you even sitting on her commission to begin with? I mean, that don't make no sense to me. So if you have your civil suit, I mean, Glenn, he should have told Stephen to get good and gone to begin with, but that didn't ever happen, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, what? How embarrassing was it for the sheriff's department that this is all being exposed, and then to suddenly have Peg Lautenschlager decide, well, nobody was really to blame. It was just a breakdown of communications. And then for them to find out about this phone call in '95, I mean, how embarrassing that must have been for certainly for the sheriff's
Yeah,
department.
and I don't think it really started becoming an embarrassment until the deposition started taking place. When you start getting everything organized and you start putting a finger on it, you know, you had Walt Kelly. I see Walt Kelly as a pretty stand up guy,
Yeah,
and you know, very brilliant minds, Stephen Glenn and Walt Kelly. But you know, I really don't think it started getting embarrassing until they started those depositions, and then they realized they had a problem. And I
yeah,
think that was kind of part of the reason that Glenn was kind of invited to take place in the commission, because I think Lautenschlager wanted to shut him the hell up. You know, if you can take half of the civil suit team and send a message, you know, however you got to do it, you do it, you know, and you at least start shutting someone up. You sit there and heard Thomas J. Fallon in open court threaten Jerry Buting and
yeah,
Dean Spring with if they wish to claim law enforcement did this and that, they do so at their own peril. So you got to understand, his desk was in Lautenschlager's office, so why wouldn't Lautenschlager be saying the same thing to Stephen Glenn and Walt Kelly? If you wish to continue with this civil suit, you're going to do so at your own peril. You know, you want to get the embarrassment rock rolling, then we're going to rock and roll with you. You know, but it's even like Fallon couldn't come. He couldn't even come into this thing until the case settled out. Okay,
yeah,
and what strikes me very fancy is that the way they did it, he comes on as soon as there's a settlement. But you know, Stephen Glenn and Walt Kelly, they pulled out of him. They're like, hey, you got all these charges, you're out of money, but you know, even with the new charges brought forth on Stephen, there was Brendan Dassey's case. Brendan hadn't been you know he hadn't been coerced at that time, you know, and they start pulling out, and it's like okay, why don't you stay together as a team of four attorneys and beat the 1985 civil suit, and then get the man money for the criminal conviction for Hallback. You know, I mean, if anything, um, they. I mean, no one owed it to Stephen, but it was owed to Stephen for someone to hang in there if they felt that he was that innocent and could have been railroaded. But then Stephen Glenn goes and writes uh, a letter to Super Lawyer magazine. He was being interviewed. He said that when he heard that fingers were pointing to Stephen, he looked at his wife and then pulled the covers over his head and said he wished he could just go back to bed, you know?
yeah,
And that was like just dog and pony show to me. Like, okay, so all of a sudden you believe that Stephen Avery is guilty of killing Teresa Hallback, but yet he was so innocent of the rape charge on Penny Bernstein.
yeah,
And I mean, to me, it's like someone said, okay, look, he's guilty, and you're going to pull out. You know, we don't care if he's innocent, and that's the do so at your own peril, and that's the way the gambit runs in Wisconsin. You know, there's all these clubs, there's all sorts of stuff, and people want to say, oh, this bullshit and this conspiracy. They exist. I mean, I mean, they exist, and
Yeah.
I got a good friend who does roofing in Wisconsin, and like you got to watch what you say about the Avery case because they can just stop his career and hurt him like that, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, it happens. It's not what you know, it's who you know, and that's the way. Whenever Stephen Glenn, him, Jerry Buting, Dean Strang, and Walt Kelly all split the settlement. Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
and you had Jerry Buting and you had Stephen Glenn sitting on Peg Lautenschlager's commission. So half of his settlement went straight over to two people on the commission, and that's kind of odd, I mean, especially when you're hired to defend Stephen Avery of 1985 rape charges, on a civil suit, but then you're joined up with Peg Lautenschlager, who's saying you didn't do it. And Paul, I don't know if you realize this, but there was a one of the rules of the Criminal Justice Study Commission when Peg stripped it from Mark Gundrum. They said we're not here to place blame on Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office and personnel, and it's in the rules. So how is Steve? And this is August 31st. So how is Stephen Glenn defending Stephen Avery in this civil suit as a commission, part ceded to the commission, but he can't place blame on Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office? I mean, how does that even happen? It's it's a conflict of interest at that point. The Attorney General is saying you can't place blame on Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office. You're going to sit in this commission, but how do you serve both the man Stephen Avery and the state? Yeah, I mean, you don't do it. You're serving the state at that point.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems incredible how as soon as Teresa disappeared, that they get cold feet.
Right.
I mean, if they'd have stuck by Steve and said, "Oh no, we're going to see this civil suit to the end," it was always going to be worth, as you say, 3 to 5, 5 to 8 million. So
right.
Their commission on 3 to 5 million or 5 to 8 million is a lot more than the 140,000 that they ended up with.
Yeah, and it would have been a good chunk of change, I mean, it would have been, and then they could have helped Stephen fight the new allegations.
Yeah.
I mean, just because you're charged with a murder doesn't forfeit your civil suit. They just pulled out. They're like, oh, you don't have no money to continue. They pulled out. It doesn't automatically forfeit your civil suit. And if you had 4 attorneys attacking, still going after the civil suit and the criminal charges, you can see all 4 men on season 2. We see Stephen Glenn and Strang and Buden, and they're all sitting around the table in season 2. It's like, okay, y'all got a lot of shit to say now. Why didn't y'all stay seated at the table and say that shit back then instead of running and sticking your tails between your legs? And what I find even more funny is Eric Loy and the public defenders, they won't even talk. They won't even talk about it. They were the original public defenders.
Yes.
And Eric Loy had talked to Ken Kratz behind closed doors about count CF 05375, which was the firearm case, and they discussed that entire scenario, the firearm, off record. I mean, it's right there in the pretrial transcript, and they dismiss it. I brought that up several times. I got a pretty good article on that point. But But yeah, why didn't Glenn and Walt Kelly just stick it out and say, "Hey, man, look, this man's been through hell,
Mm-hmm.
and so we need to ride with him." But they didn't do that because part of the reason Stephen Glenn was sitting on the commission, and part of the commissioner, like if you were on the commission, part of the members were you were not there to discuss how Manitowoc County, did this and that to Stephen, but yet you're his civil suit attorney. What the hell, I
Yeah,
mean, it makes no sense.
it doesn't because I actually checked on this, and I'm sure you know better than me which states have this minimum of a 33%. But that's normally the commission that the attorneys are paid out of a civil suit settlement.
Right.
It's a set amount, isn't it? It's 33%. Some
It's
are some are more than that,
33.4 in most states across the board. You're not allowed to get more than 33.4%. They,
Right.
you can't slice a pie three ways equally. You know what I'm saying? So 33.4% is what the attorney gets
Yeah.
and then if there's other costs, it'll come out, of the defendant's money, whoever the plaintiff that wins. So for any of your medical researches, all that stuff to help back up your civil suit. But yeah, they I mean, what's 33.4% of just $3 million? Then do 5 million, then do 8 million,
Yeah.
and the trouble that people the concept that people miss that are guilters. They're like, well, why would they frame the man for a $5 million settlement? It's not the settlement of Steve. It was basically the 900 people that wrote to the Wisconsin Innocent Project following Stephen's release.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, even at $1.2 million, like Stephen Avery originally petitioned, if all these had got out and petitioned $1.2 million, you got a $1 billion problem, and that's why we see the crime log backed up by Peg Lautenschlager, but it's only affecting these Wisconsin Innocent Project people. It wasn't affecting anybody else in the new cases or anything. It was only affecting the people that were in prison that wanted DNA done. And that becomes a huge problem. Now, if you had 900 people sitting in Wisconsin and just the Wisconsin Governmental Experiment Program that started in 2006, their research basically said about 654 of those people could be, like, no doubt innocent. Okay, and
Mm.
then 300, there was over 300 that had their DNA completely destroyed, and that's the reason that when Gundrum started the Avery Task Force, they wrote in the legislation to keep the biological matter that Norman Gahn and Tom Fallon destroyed by giving back to the. I mean, the whole point of that Avery law was so it wouldn't happen to nobody else, and if you got the ball rolling on the Wisconsin Innocent Project, and if they had used that Avery Task Force to instead of preventing people from going to prison, they should have went in and got those 900 people out.
Yeah.
The 900, they should have used all that manpower and research to say, hey, Wisconsin Innocent Project, we're going to work hand in hand with you to free these 900 men. There's roughly 654 that by the time 2006 rolled around, that they had concluded of those 900 were possibly like over 85% innocent. Could never had done the case, but then you got Lautenschlager pulling the cards in the state crime lab. Oh no, we're not touching these.
Yeah.
We're not doing it. And there's still hundreds of those cases that ain't been solved yet in Wisconsin Innocent Project. The original 900, there's still over 600 of them that haven't been they claim they don't have the manpower. You know, someone get the manpower. I'm pretty sure me and you and all, other million supporters we got could look over these cases in a heartbeat. But now Lautenschlager made it where you have to have a district attorney review everything, the cases, and the person she appointed was the person that first blew a whistle, Michael Graceback. He's like, hey, look, you're on the duty of saying, oh, we don't have manpower to do this case. I mean, it's funny. You go to blow a whistle on something that Michael Griesbach had the utmost integrity to walk to that bitch's office. To walk in there. Excuse my French, and say, hey, look, we got a problem here. But then turns around and puts his little tail between his legs. I lost all respect for him after that, and then calls Lautenschlager's calls her report whitewashed. The December 17th, 2003 report that protects Manitowoc County, but then has the nerves to send me an email that, oh no, he doesn't think that Lautenschlager had anything to do with Stephen Avery's frame job. Get the fuck out of here. And now he's defending Andy Colburn, right? And he wasn't even allowed on the crime scene. So how the hell do you defend Andy Colburn, yet you weren't even allowed on the crime scene? You were taken off the case. Ken Kratz come on, it's like goodbye, But
yeah, I mean, Mike Griesbach did go there, and then of course they handed it over.
He went there, and it wasn't long, and they're like, bye.
Yeah.
And Kratz come on. Kratz was on early, very early.
Yeah. I think they knew exactly what they were doing. They were going to hand over the case to Calumet, but they were going to set it up so whereby the actual Calumet Sheriff's Department, they do this chaperoning of Manitowoc. Now, I'm even left thinking, would anybody within Calumet even have training on being a watchdog while another sheriff's department conducts an investigation?
Right.
Right. It's just so ridiculous, so preposterous, and yet we're expect to accept it all. That everything was above board. Everything's fine. There was no wrongdoing. You might have questions, but rest assured, we know what we were doing. Yeah, of course we. What's going on?
And what's really funny, besides Mike Griesbach, the case being stripped from him, is Peg Lautenschlager basically recused herself, stepped down, but then she puts Fallon on it and puts Fassbender on it. The lead was Mark Wiegert of Calumet and Fassbender, but Fassbender has the ultimate jurisdiction because he's Division of Criminal Investigation. He's Wisconsin Division of Criminal Investigation. Now, if you're out there and you're watching this live, I want you to Google the Attorney General's office, and I want you to Google the Wisconsin Division of Criminal Investigation Madison office, and that's where Tom Fassbender's at. It's right across the hall, not the road, not across like a block. It's in the same building across the hallway. So if you recused yourself, yet Fassbender's office is across the hall from your desk, and Fallon's desk is in your office, how the hell are you really recused? Whenever they first started researching it, they sent in Amy Lahan and Deb Strauss to start investigating stuff, and then all of a sudden it went to Fallon and Fassbender, and they come in, they're like, oh, we're gonna help the Calumet County. Wiegert wasn't really in control there. You hear him Saturday morning on November 5th, when they're going out to the Avery salvage yard right before they find the RAV4, and he's like, hey, the boss has a new plan, the boss, and I believe he was kind of referring more to Fassbender than Pagel. You still got a chain of command, even though Wiegert was a lead on that case. Fassbender's still your top brass on there. That was Lautenschlager's personal investigator, personal. So if you recused yourself, but you got your personal investigator, why don't you hand it down to like a different agency? You got 5 DCI offices in Wisconsin, so why didn't you hand it to one outside of your building? It's outside of Madison. But so Stephen didn't get a fair shake at anything.
No.
No matter how you diced it, the attorney general stayed involved. Even with his own civil attorney, like Stephen Glenn's there, and she's saying, "Hey, look, you can't point fingers at Manitowoc County if you sit on as a member on my commission. That was one of the rules." So like even Buden was a member. So and it come they asked was Stephen framed, and then they asked the question, well, then who killed um Teresa Hallback? And Jerry Buden and Dean Stringer like, well, that's the thing that they have in common with Stephen Avery is they didn't kill her either. But if you're gonna go out and say that you framed her, go ahead and allege a murder too. I mean, I mean, you don't have to. If you're defending a criminal, you don't have to prove that the law enforcement agency killed her. You just got to have a good story to say somebody else killed her. So if they went through all the trouble to frame them, why didn't Strang and Buden lay hold that law enforcement killed her? If they had, if you got the remains, the blood, the bones to plant, then why didn't you kill her? How the hell did you get the body?
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think that having followed, and I've mentioned this a few times to other people as well, having followed the case and other cases, I find it a bit frustrating at times that these attorneys are very intelligent people. They clearly know the law, but it's like they are restricted by the laws that govern their ethics and everything, and they're restricted. And yet you've got somebody like Ken Kratz who is allowed the freedom of Wisconsin to do what the hell he likes, and yet you've got these attorneys that are involved in the defense, and they're restricted. They have to be careful what they say, what they do, and to me, it's just not a level playing field at all.
Right. Well. Also, in the case of what you just mentioned, they're restricted. Well, you got to look who helped as a lead author for the juvenile bill, the minor custody interrogation. Jerry Buden was one of the lead authors on that bill. So, how do you give him the authority to go on Peg Lautenschlager's commission and say what he wants to do on that, but then step in the courtroom and you got to silence him? You can't point fingers at Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office because guess what? You're a member now, and I think she had Buden and Buden definitely and Stephen Glenn by the balls on especially when Fallon gets up and say do so at your own peril, and if you go back to some of the Madison fundraisers, you'll see Strang and Fallon and golfing events all the way back to the mid '80s. They were already decade-long colleagues before this thing even started. So yeah, there was no fair level playing field.
Yeah.
Even when you got the 2 highest attorneys, out of Madison working basically, and everybody. I mean, okay, so Buden lives in Brookline or whatever, but Brookview, but still he was in Madison every month. Okay, he was the chair for the Wisconsin bar for the criminal law section. Okay, and that's a pretty high up spot politically, So everybody coming over to defend.
Oh dear. We seem to have lost connection with Chad. He'll probably cut. Oh, there he is. He's come back.
I had a phone call come in. Yeah, so basically everybody that come to defend and prosecute, were right there from the state level. You had Fassbender, you had Fallon, you had Buden, you had Strang, and again, Strang's office was right across the road from Fallon and Lunchslaggers. Jerry Buden mentions in his book that he watched Ken Kratz's press conference in Dean Strang's office, right there in Madison. Okay, Dean Strang, and Jerry Buden, why didn't y'all walk across the road and say, hey, Lautenschlager, what the hell's going on with this? Because we just made a law where you got to do a proper interrogation of the custody of minors, when you're interrogating. But you're the lead author and you don't damn walk over there. I think I'd be banging some damn doors down.
Well, here's another thing as well. Mike Griesbach and Mark Rohrer hand the case over to Ken Kratz. When Ken Kratz did that press conference, you would have thought that being the Manitrock attorneys, they would be going, oh, to hell, Ken, you can't go doing a press conference like that, so biased, and yet they stand behind him, don't they?
Right.
Mike Griesbach, to me, seems to be the very, very good at deflecting. He basically, in his book, The Innocent Killer, the first 2/3 is excellent, talking about Dennis Vogel and how they framed Steve the first time, and then trying to defend what happened in the Holbach investigation. To me, it seems too much, as I say, a bit of deflection, because any decent attorney would have come out and said, "Oh no, that was wrong what Ken Kratz did," because none of what he said in his press conference actually happened.
Right, and it's funny because he ended up doing 12 press conferences altogether that were mainstreamed, and he wants to bitch about 10 episodes of Making a Murder, how it was all biased against, the defense was being biased against the prosecution. Well, damn, Ken Kratz, what the hell did you do when you come out with your press conference? You were given episodic. You were tainting the jury. Pre-trial jury contamination. That's what you were doing. And Stephen didn't have an attorney whatsoever to sit there and say, hey, no, this ain't happening. This wasn't happening. So he was basically contaminating the whole jury pool. Mm-hmm. And you're calling the kettle black, pot calling the kettle black. I mean, shit, come on.
Yeah. Listen, it's getting kind of late, but I do have one other question I was going to ask, and I suppose it's because we've seen how, and you predicted this, that Kathleen Zellner was going to be constantly going backwards and forwards, being messed about by the state. I'm paraphrasing, but basically that's what you told me about 2 years ago. You watch this. Kathleen Zellner will be punted here to there, to here to there, to here to there, trying to get the case resolved. So my question would be, it's presented in Making a Murder as if Glynn, I think it's Steve Glynn, that suggests that Jerry Buting, Dean Strang are the best ones for the job. But I'm kind of thinking, given Wisconsin, what were the chances of any attorney going in there and being able to defend Stephen Avery?
Well, if you got Fallon, who, I've talked a lot about Fallon to you off and on. Yep. I'm like, he's the main damage control rug sweeper. If you have any attorney going in there, Fallon, he's pretty nasty son of a bitch, and so he's going to tell anybody do so at your own peril. You're either with us or you're against us, and that goes back to those clubs. And look who's sitting on the boards with Lautenschlager. I mean, membership don't lie, okay? Membership tells a solid story, okay? If you know that Peg Lautenschlager was dirty to begin with, Stephen Glenn, why the hell would you sit on a board with her? Why would you just be like, fuck this, you know?
Yeah.
Jerry Buden, why don't you do the same? But yeah, the likability of any attorney, and there were 25 in 2005 at the time of this charge. There were 25,000 practicing attorneys, judges, and district attorneys in the state of Wisconsin. 25,000, and I just don't see it. If you want to shut a man up, you're gonna walk in that courtroom and you're gonna do so at your own peril when you open your mouth or whatever you need to say. So I don't see anybody successfully defending it. But who would have been someone of integrity to blow a whistle? That's the question. Is
Yes.
Would Dean Strang blow a whistle on Fallon after being his friend for decades before this even happens? You already kind of know how dangerous the guy is,
Mm.
And so if they got anybody else besides those people, and what makes you think that what the question is who would have integrity to say something? And I think they would all be scared, and I think that's kind of the case of why a lot of this got filmed from Dean Strang and Jerry Buden, so they could say, hey, let's drop the ball where we need to, but protect our own self and have it filmed in case we need it, But they knew it was coming. That's the thing. They can't sit there and say they didn't know it wasn't coming. I mean, I mean, to give you an example, Stephen Glenn says that he approached Dean Strang first. Well, why don't you go off and approach Dean Strang when you've been meeting with Jerry Buden August 31st, September, October, November, December, January, February, for 7 months? Jerry Buden was never approached at all, huh? But if he did approach Dean Strang first, guess who pointed in that direction? Dean Strang's colleague, Fallon. You still have Fallon everywhere you turn. You got Fallon in this mix. And that's a proven fact. That's not like a guesstimate. That's not a hypothesis. That's a fact. You have Fallon everywhere you turn.
Yeah, and I think eventually people are beginning to realise that I mean, Kathleen Zellner is quoted as saying that in episode series 2 that she thinks that Fallon is an honourable person or a genuine person, and I think that's really just for the sake of the cameras, because I can't see her believing that for 1 second.
Well, back when Trisha Bushnell was on Stephen's case, I told Trisha a lot of stuff. We would talk very often, and I told her to look into Fallon. Told her, and then she reported to me that Zellner thinks that Fallon is a pretty ethical and a man of integrity. And I'm like, look, and now 3 years later, I'm like. You keep dropping the ball. You got to pick this up. You're gonna have to attack that top tier, and that's gonna be her biggest problem. I see it going all the way to a federal level before anything's done. The only problem with that is Josh Call, the new Wisconsin Attorney General. He's a former FBI director, not like an agent, a director. So anybody who's going to be investigating this case when it gets time for a federal investigation, he's already got his hand in the pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be hard, and yeah. I mean, I see things getting dangerous for Zellner's side, actually. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now. I just see it getting dangerous for.
Yep. Talking about dangerous, you might have heard that there's going to be a live 48-hour event coming up.
Oh yeah. The Making a Murder-a-thon.
Yes. So
now you got like 40 hours of that, right?
Yes. So I'm of the opinion that it's probably best to do a video maybe once a week. And I'm thinking something else I'd quite like to discuss with a few people would be a much broader subject that we could maybe expand upon during the marathon, if you'd care to join me then. It's something that I was discussing with my keyboard player going up to the gig a week ago up in Edinburgh, and he's a history student. We talked all about the America, the history of America, and then he mentioned this concept of American. Now, what's the correct word? Exceptionalism.
Right.
Which is something I have had the benefit of seeing firsthand when the dude was in Australia, because he assumed that Australia was just going to be like America.
Oh, that was a big surprise for him, huh?
It came as a huge shock and a surprise to him. He thought he could use American dollars.
Oh wow, yeah. I have I have an aunt. It's one of my mom's older sisters. She's the baby of 6 siblings, but the second to the youngest. There's 14 years difference, and she's up in her age, but she's married to a guy from New Zealand, my aunt, and he's a pretty interesting character, and so yeah, the dude thinking that he's gonna get away with everything American in the land down under. I guess they put him in the boot, eh? yeah, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're sat in the front seat of the car, believe it or not, you have to put a seatbelt on.
Right. Right.
Yeah, you're going to introduce us to your new pup.
Yeah, this is Oliver. He is probably the youngest Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey supporter. He's only 7.5 weeks old right now. So. But that's Oliver. He's I just woke him up for his nap.
What?
He's a Jack Russell, wiry-haired Jack Russell. Oh, and really? he's ready to tear Fallon a new asshole whenever it comes down to it. Right now he's just like yawning. He's like, yeah. He's a sweet little guy. He's full of vinegar and piss, man. You put him in a hamster ball, and he could power New York City. Like at 7 weeks, he jumped off a 5-foot deck the other day. It had no rails on it, and he jumped right into the shrubbery, chasing a bumblebee, and just plinkoed down the bush and just hits the ground and just keeps on running. And he's like, okay, no, and they have no fear, you know. So, but yeah, this is Oliver.
Hi, Ollie. Yeah, he's lucky to have such a nice owner as you, Chad.
Yeah. In 8 weeks, another week. He'll be like, "Why did y'all get me to this guy? Why did y'all?" He's gonna be watching the Making a Murder Marathon with us.
Excellent. Listen, I'm going to say cheerio because it's nearly 2 o'clock in the morning here.
Oh yeah, you're up late, but you haven't got your time back to normal yet.
No, I did a very, very stupid thing on the Thursday that I was back. I woke up at 4 o'clock and I started playing on my phone on that game that I was telling you about, the one I'm getting on quite well with, this Matchington Manor. It's
beating 4-year-olds.
4-year and upwards, yeah. So I think I should manage this one, because I was getting fed up of being hammered at the word games. So anyway, I woke up at 4 o'clock and I inadvertently woke up my wife, and I suffered greatly for it because she said, right, if you're awake at 4 o'clock, you get downstairs and do the ironing. So when I woke up the next day at 4 o'clock, I knew just to lie there and not do a thing, because otherwise I'd wake her up and get back there and do more bloody ironing.
It was either laid defenseless and lifeless as a slug, or become starch man, right?
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to catch you later, dude, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I got a pretty good video coming out about the Rav4. I might have to pull you in as a guest on it. You know, it'll be interesting. Found a couple of things out that might solve if there's 17 Rav4s or 25. But
Yes.
I kind of got onto something here in the last couple of weeks about it, and I've been doing a lot of research and stuff in it. But I wanna pick the brain of a very interesting man when I do this. And I mean, he's a great guy. He catches a lot of hell, but I mean, he's got some pertinent information to the case, you know.
Yes.
And we don't need to look over anybody. We are all on the fighting side, you know.
Yes.
And like the American flag, looks great back there. Just you need some more Scotland in there somewhere.
Yes, I did have a Scotland flag somewhere, but I can't think what I did with it. But I'll get one. I'll get some more Scotland stuff up. Okay.
Right, and yes, your street credit's coming along phenomenal. We're allowing you to fly the American flag now.
Okay. Catch you later, mate.
All right, we'll catch you later. Be safe. Talk to you
Yeah.
later.
Good day.